Oh no, I hit the curb too hard. Save it, save it, save it. Oh, I didn't even edit that in. That was Lando that said that. Gentlemen, it is time to finally play F1 24. It's that time of year where we finally get a new F1 game. Big shout out to EA for giving me this opportunity early. There is lots to talk about. This time we're going to be going through career mode. We are playing as Lando Norris, doing a 100% race around Imola. And we're going to be getting a good feel for what's different in the handling model compared to F1 23. And also all the other new changes they've added for this year's game. You'll see they've added a few new cutscenes, and Yuki Tsunoda is the same height as Daniel Ricciardo. That's when you know EA's been cooking this year. In all seriousness, it's good to see some new cutscenes, and I'm sure there's a good reason why they had to make all the drivers the same height, but we are going to jump into driver career, which is one of the multiple career modes you can now choose from in F1 24. They've also added challenge career, but maybe we can check out challenge career in another video. You can choose either an official driver, which is one on the current grid, or an F2 driver. This also includes the icons such as Pastor Maldonado and some of the esports drivers that have won championships in the past. Because Lando performed pretty well in Imola the other week, we're going to be racing as him. You'll also notice this recognition system in the top right corner here, which is brand new for F1 24. Just as in real life, Lando Norris is more favored by McLaren than Oscar Piastri as he gets the upgrades sooner. In the game, you can see Lando Norris gets about 55% of the favoritism when it comes to choice and demanding specific types of upgrades. Recognition being based on the driver's performance will allow you to choose more of the development path of the team and also get other perks when it comes to developing upgrades sooner. So we're going to roll with this and we're going to check out a brand new cutscene that's been added to this year's game.
Finally, let's do this for real. Sorry it took so long. You know what these legal types are like? Yes, sir. No, sir. Here's 80 pages of needless jargon, sir. Anyway, believe it or not, this is my excited face. Come on, come on. Let me show you what we've got. So, all the usual stuff. Merchandising, likeness, blah, blah, blah. But the really juicy stuff is their expectation of you. They need you to challenge yourself all season, be the best you can be, dominate your teammate, become a legend. All that jazz. Now, it's over to you.
Alright then, I guess I'll sign my life away. So here you get to determine the target for the season, and setting a harder target will obviously give you more favoritism when it comes to controlling the development path of the car. But if you set an easier target, obviously you won't get as much control over that development. Personally, I'm going to leave it on the default settings because I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. They've added some nice new cutscenes where I've turned up to my mansion apparently. I wish I had a place like this in real life. I guess this is Lando Norris's home in Monaco. It must be those race bonuses coming in recently. So it looks like Oscar has an intensity of regular. The more you know. They've also added development specialist to F1 24, where basically you complete goals for each specialist or engineer, and if you complete that goal you get a perk based on whatever kind of category that engineer or expert is in. These goals starting off will be pretty easy until you unlock more specialists, and then they'll gradually become more difficult for each race weekend. You'll see what your teammate is planning to upgrade if you're in this section. If I pick the same upgrade as Oscar Piastri, he'll simply go ahead and pick a different upgrade instead. You'll also get the opportunity to break a multi-year contract as well as review a current contract that you have within the season. I stole Oscar's idea to upgrade the front wing, so he's gone and developed the chassis instead. Let's jump into the race weekend. Oscar and Lando on their way to their 9-to-5 grind being an F1 driver. Where's Andreas Stella? I owe him a couple of beers for those upgrades in Miami. Alright, it's time to get into the nitty gritty. Basically, aerodynamics meta seems like it's going to be mostly front wing this year, heavily outweighing the rear wing. They've added engine braking this year, and the differential can go all the way down to 10%. So you're going to have a lot more of a window to mess around with these settings, and engine braking will impact how much you can harvest energy in braking zones, so that is an important setup tool. Just remember, if you go too low on the differential, you'll basically get one wheel burnouts. Jumping into qualifying then, it didn't really go to plan. And I kid you not, I did not edit that in. That was legitimately the game putting in that audio. So for this race, we're going to be starting from the back of the grid. And this also negatively impacts your recognition.
Can anyone stop Max Verstappen?
That's what they're hoping for. And that's what we're hoping for as well in some ways, because we don't want to see just one driver or one team running away with it this season like we had last year or even the years gone by in this sport.
So they've added some new commentary, which keeps it a bit fresh. But we are looking to try and move forward from the back of the grid, so let's jump into it. Given that Imola was a 100% chance of a safety car, I am going to reduce the fuel a little bit. I'm sure this definitely won't come back to haunt me. Finally, some on-track action. We're here for the formation lap. We're about to get going, and this is going to be my first experience with the handling model in this game. We've got plenty of laps to get a good feel for it. Also, some driver radio.
Ready check.
Now, I'm not going to lie, there was a lot of grip coming off the launch there. I know my tyres are meant to be somewhat cold, but it felt like I had medium traction control on. There is a lot more grip so far this year in comparison to previous year's game. And you'll notice the body roll already as I move side to side trying to get some heat in these tyres. The braking trick doesn't work where you drag the brake pedal as much as it did last year. So you'll be working a lot harder to get those tyres up to temperature on the formation lap. But we are finally here for our first race on the F1 24 game. It is 5 red lights, and away we go. Starting from the back of the grid, let's see how many positions we can make up in this 63-lap race. It's a decent start, already past Sonoda. We pick up another couple of cars, including the RB of Daniel Ricciardo, as we now head into the first chicane where Ocon is kind of blocking the way. Not much we can do to try and get past him, as we are also covered off by Ricciardo. The McLaren being definitely much faster, we're going to try and get past him as soon as possible because we've got a lot of cars up ahead that are faster than the RB to overtake in this race. I can see Gasly up in 12th place. Alpine must have slipped EA a couple of dollars to try and make him look good in this game. But halfway through lap 1, we find ourselves up to 16th place, making up about 4 positions already as we have Stroll up next. And you'll notice that there's a new UI or HUD in the middle of the screen. I'm not entirely a huge fan of this compared to last year's HUD. I think I prefer a much more symmetrical looking display, but each to their own. Another thing I wanted to bring up is watch the car go through the chicane. I absolutely chopped that chicane, but the car remained compliant. It is a lot easier to attack the curbs in this year's game because the suspension feels somewhat softer, and I think that has something to do with the new handling model and the way that the body roll and the suspension works with the car. Max Verstappen leading the way as usual. I think that's somewhat realistic, at least. You can't deny that one. And the next big thing to talk about is the ERS deployment. It is no longer a long-term goal. It is a lap-by-lap basis kind of thing where you will attack corner by corner or save corner by corner. You shouldn't really try to save up energy to deploy in 3 laps time because you can easily save that up the lap before it. We managed to make the move around the outside of Ocon, promoting us up into P15, and you can see the AI are very aggressive. They seem to attack and defend pretty well, and I think they're a lot more spatially aware of what the player is doing. I don't have any gripes so far with the AI. I think they're an improvement from last year, so I think Codemasters can give themselves a pat on the back for that one. Here we are now attacking Gasly, who's already lost a couple of positions from when I mentioned him earlier, and I've dipped the tyre onto the grass and around we go. So that was actually a pretty realistic spin, if you ask me. So not too far away from what I would expect to happen in real life there. I will say though, that there is definitely an adjustment period for this handling model. It is not something you'll pick up straight away. It's probably one of the largest changes in a year-by-year difference, and I actually think the handling might be a bit divisive between our player base because I think some people will like it and I think others might not find it to their liking. But I think if you give it enough time, you will get used to it. I found the car handling a bit alien in the low speed corners with the way the car rotated and the way you can crank on steering lock and just generate the body roll through a corner seems to give you a lot more grip instead of inducing understeer on the front axle. But as I play the game more, I've adapted to it and I'm starting to enjoy it a bit more now.
Okay, Lando, engine's running very, very hot. Engine's running hot. Let's try and keep it cooler.
So this is a new feature in the F1 24 game. The engineer has given me a objective mid-race to cool down my engine. For 4 laps, I can't overheat the engine for more than 10 seconds. And I've just completed that objective. So the engineer will now kind of give you goals to move on in the race that will help you, I guess, with your racecraft and management skills. But as soon as we complete that objective, we get a broken DRS. So we're gonna have to make our overtakes just like we did on Joe, the old-fashioned way with no DRS for a while, at least until they can fix it remotely from the garage. And it does look like 3 laps later they have fixed my DRS, which has made the move on Albon that much easier as we move up into the points finally in P10. Keep in mind that the car's performance is not final, and I'd expect a day 1 patch to occur before you get the game, as we get past Sargent, who would be having a nosebleed. He's that high up the order in the points still. As we now approach the back of Alonso, you'll see above Piastri's name, there's a blue icon, and that is, I think, because he's my teammate and he is my rival. So that's essentially the game giving you a goal to beat throughout the race. And if you beat your teammate, you'll obviously get a lot more recognition than losing to your teammate. Let's just put it that way. Making the move on Alonso into Rivata, he was still there along side by side. Had to leave the space or else we would have both ended up in the gravel trap. And like I said, I think the AI is definitely an improvement from last year's game. A lot more aggressive, but still manages to leave the space, as we are looking at a move on Piastri here, but he defends nicely. And it looks like our engineer is going to give us another objective.
Lando, Oscar ahead. Right, let's go. Let's try and get past them and put them on the back foot. Push, push.
So we've got a new objective to overtake Piastri, as we're about to get overtaken by Alonso. I better defend before I can even start looking at Piastri at this point, as we managed to hold on to P8 for now. But yeah, Piastri's been pretty defensive the past few laps, so it's going to be not the easiest thing in the world to overtake him, as he runs out of ERS, and I think because of that, it's made it a lot easier for me in the end to get past him, and we complete the objective. Now we're up to lap 28. The Grand Prix is flying past. It's now time for our pit window, as we'll be boxing this lap, and not before we make the move on George Russell as we go into Rivata 2 and get the move as a block pass. Seeing if we can assist Piastri a little bit there, if he can overtake Russell, as we dive hard on the brakes for the pit limiter. And you'll see there's not been overly much change to the pits. I think basically what you got in F1 23 is what you get in F1 24.
Rear wheel. I know it's not ideal, but let's try and put it behind us and finish the race strong.
And because we got unlucky with the slow pit stop, Alonso has jumped us in the pits. So we're going to have to make another overtake again. The advantage we do have is we're going to be doing the undercut on the likes of our teammate and a bunch of other cars. So we'll see how we go. By the time we come back around, we may see some other cars jumping into the pits, and in fact we do on lap 30. We can see Perez coming out of the pits, and we were behind him before the pit stop, so that is a position gained, but we still need to re-overtake Alonso here. Another thing I noticed with this year's game, they have tweaked the graphics a little bit. It's not overly different to last year's game, but I noticed the biggest change for me was the lighting. I think it's a nice addition to what they had previously. Tiny bit more realistic. I think the graphics are solid, but they'll definitely need a new engine if they were going to improve on what they already have here. Anyways, we make the move on Alonso, and we have Sainz up next. Another thing I've been enjoying about this year's game is the ERS deployment control you have. You can basically set it to none and use the overtake button only when you want to deploy the ERS. That means on the straights, you can save as much ERS as you'd like, and I think that will be the meta. While the people that play the game more casually and don't want to have to manually change the ERS modes all the time or use the overtake button all the time, they can definitely just leave it on medium settings. We have now made our way all the way up to P4, and we're one step away from the podium. We have a nice kind of fight club going on here between Leclerc, Hamilton and ourselves, but Verstappen is just in another postcode. He's just checked out as we go 3 wide heading into the first chicane, and we somehow managed to come out on top after all that, and that's promoted us up into P2, and there's a 22-second gap to the car in front to Verstappen. Team radio.
Okay, Lando, we need to save some ERS, so let's use all the techniques you know about.
I really don't know why they told me to save ERS, as I'm now getting attacked by Hamilton for trying to save the ERS. I'm not sure if you get more recognition for completing these objectives, but I'm going to try and achieve it anyway. And we do in fact manage to pass that objective by collecting up all that ERS, as Hamilton now finally makes the overtake on us. And my thinking at this point is I need to actually save fuel, because we've been burning way too much fuel. And the best way to save fuel is to stick behind Hamilton and use the DRS and coast into corners after the straights. And it does feel like we burn more fuel in this year's game in comparison to last year. Science is actually looking to make the move into the braking zone around the outside, but we're going to have none of that. And we hold on to P3, and we just need to stick behind Hamilton in that DRS within the 1 second range, and then that way we can save up all the fuel we need until there's about 10 laps to go. Then I think we'll start our charge and see if we can break away from this battle pack. And we're now on to lap 53, and this is where I plan to make an attack and try and get past Hamilton. And once we get past him, the idea is to get out of that 1 second range so he can't follow us, as we absolutely rocket ship past. The DRS is very powerful, I feel, on this game. I think it might also depend on how you set up the rear wing as well, as they've definitely taken that into consideration with the way the aero works this year. Different cars will have different characteristics with how they perform at different circuits. There's a lot more attention to detail. We're up to lap 56 already, and I really thought I would break away from Hamilton, but instead he's now attacking me, and there's no excuses here because I have enough fuel to get to the end of the race while pushing all the way, and Hamilton is right on my tail. You'll notice in the bottom right corner that the tire wears a lot more unevenly. It's not so much evenly spread across all the tires as it was last year. I guess you could say we abuse the tires more than Carlos Sainz abuses Oscar Piastri. But on a serious note now, we have run out of ERS, and Hamilton has overtaken us on the penultimate lap of the race. That means we've only got this lap and next lap to overtake Hamilton to keep P2. But as you can see there, he's kind of pulled a gap on us through that corner. Heading on to the last lap of the race now, we open up DRS, and we've now pretty much run out of ERS as well. But Hamilton seems to be struggling. I think he's run out of battery, but we have the advantage of the DRS as we fly past to take P2. And we know the AI retaliates, so we need to try and open up as much of a gap as possible before we let Hamilton get the chance. Heading into the final corner now, it looks like we've opened up the gap by over a second to Hamilton, and we are going to take home the checker flag in P2.
Insane. What another trophy for everyone. Oh, I've not drunk for the whole race. She didn't remind me to drink.
I am curious how many driver radios they've recorded and how many years back they go, because it seems like they've got one for every occasion almost, as you saw from qualifying and coming P2 in the race. I have no idea what that animation is. Oh my god. Look at Oscar Piastri in the background. But anyways, that's improved our driver ratings for our recognition. And now we're going to head into a secret meeting. If you don't already know, in this career mode, you can basically have secret meetings with other teams and discuss your future. But there's also the chance of being caught by the media and your own team having these secret meetings, which will affect your recognition in a negative way because you're basically not being loyal to the team. I've accepted this one just to see what happens. Hopefully we don't get caught.
Scouring the socials and asking around, and I'm delighted to say that the team are none the wiser about us chatting with anyone else. And the meeting went well too. I know. I'm amazing. You're welcome.
So there you have it, we didn't get caught in the end. And that is going to wrap up our introduction into driver career mode and our first look into this type of career mode, as it hasn't been available before in our previous F1 games. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. I'd like to hear what you think of the handling model as well. And probably one of the most exciting parts is just having an updated Spa and Silverstone. So I'll be looking forward to jumping into those tracks on multiplayer and having some open lobbies as soon as possible. And once again, big shout out to EA for giving me this early opportunity. But that is going to wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more F1 24 content.